Okay, it's Thursday morning and United play Tottenham this evening in the League Cup quarter-finals. So I thought I'd pop on, do a quick preview of the game tonight. Just have a quick chat about other things that have gone on previously this week after the derby. And then just sort of give you my predicted side. Again, see how wrong I am from like I was last week. Actually, last week wasn't too bad. I only got two wrong out of the 11 to start the derby, which for me isn't too bad. And also give my prediction of the results as well. I mean, to start off with, I think it's hard to do anything other than talk about Marcus Rashford, and again his desire to get his opinion in the press almost immediately. After being dropped on Sunday for the City game, it would have made sense if he'd have kept his head down for a bit, just did what he's actually employed to do, train, keep his gob shut, and try and get back in the side. Unfortunately, his idea tends to differ from most people's more common sense approach, and his first thought is to do an interview and get himself in the press with some photos, giving toys out to kids at his old school. Not that there's anything wrong with that part of it, but I think the desire to get in front of a reporter who he clearly must trust to put a positive slant on anything he say, it just baffles my mind. He does his interview. In his interview, he states he's ready for a new challenge, which to most people sounded like he wanted to move on. And generally speaking, I don't think too many people have an issue with that. I don't. I think it would be best for both him and the club if he was to move on. I think he's had, 8 years now in the first team, and he's been good for 3 of those. And I understand he was playing with back injury for a certain amount of time. He played with a foot injury for a certain amount of time. He didn't have to. He chose to do that. He could have insisted that he have surgery, but he didn't, for whatever reasons. To use that as justification for the other 4 poor seasons, I think he's clutching at straws a little bit. He's had one stellar season, which his supporters seem to be using as a marker of that is what he is. That's not. That's the anomaly. That's the outlier. He isn't that person who gets 30 goals a season every season. He's done it once. He gets a lot of criticism from fans, and to a large extent, I do understand that and agree with it. I don't agree with the abuse he gets. You can criticise without having to abuse somebody, and I think that's where it's always crossed the line for me. But I think after 8 years, 18 months especially, of really poor form, I think a move would do both him and us good. To go into the press and say that, or give that impression at the very least, wasn't necessarily the wisest thing to do, and that could have been made things very tricky for Ruben Amorim in his next press conference. Amorim's press conference was yesterday morning, and out of the 10 minutes of the press conference, I'd say a good 9 of those were spent with reporters trying to get him to say something about Marcus Rashford that they could then make a big deal out of in the paper or on the news later that day. Fortunately, we seem to have a manager now who is more than aware of the tricks that reporters like to play and the holes that they like to encourage managers to jump into. Fortunately, he wasn't playing that game. One of the questions was, something along the lines of, well, he stated that he wants a new challenge. Would you suggest that means he wants to move away? And Amorim's answer was along the lines of, well, yeah, I'm glad he wants a new challenge because we have a new challenge here. For me, Rashford's press conference, interview that he felt would get people on his side, has bounced back on him quite significantly, because Rashford has now found himself in having to clarify what he regards as a new challenge. And I think that is actually a very sensible approach from the manager. Putting this on the player, this is a player's issue, this is a player's fault. He didn't get picked on Sunday for the derby because of his performance. This isn't a failing of the manager or the club, this is a failing of the player. Something that he seems committed to refusing to accept and has done for a long time. If this comes back to bite him on the arse, then he's got no one else to blame. He'll try to blame somebody else. I would put money on it, because the Marcus Rashford brand seems to be the most important thing to Marcus Rashford. It's unfortunate, but I think that's where it's gone because of the way he's been treated. We've pandered to him, we've overpaid him and given him far too many chances. For me, he's had his chances and needs to move on. And if this is the first start in him moving on in the summer, I don't think he'll go in January. I don't see that as necessarily a bad thing. One of the other fallouts from the derby on Sunday was a couple of injuries. Noticeably, the most noticeable was Mason Mount, because he only lasted half an hour, quarter of an hour, I think it was, in the derby, which I think I said the other day was really unfortunate for him. I really feel for Mount, because I think there's a very good player who would really suit the system that we're now playing if he could stay fit enough for long enough. He was clearly upset when he had to come off, understandably so, given the injuries that he's had over the last 18 months since he joined United. I'd be upset too, just as he gets to start a big game rather than coming on for the last 5-10 minutes like he has been doing a lot this season, and to only last quarter of an hour. That's hard. The other one that I didn't pick up on at the time was Mazraoui, and the speculation early in the week was that he might not make the Tottenham game. It's not a massive crisis, because I think given that 4 days ago we had a full squad to train aside from Luke Shaw, and it's 2 more players. But it's not, and I think you're going to get injuries in high intensity games like the one that they played on Sunday. On the bright side, I think Mazraoui has actually travelled with the squad to Tottenham. Whether he'll play or not, I very much doubt. He'll be on the bench at most, I would expect. Because it's League Cup game ultimately. It's not the end of the world if we don't get through. It would be nice, don't get me wrong, but it's not the end of the world if we don't get through. And I think there are other players that Amorim mentioned who aren't getting the game time that they probably deserve. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of those got game time tonight. I think consequently, I think there's as well as the injuries, and I think Mount could be out for a couple of months, so I've heard. It's not a short-term injury by all accounts, so I heard he was looking at February. How right that is, I don't know. It's just speculation. I don't know anything more than anybody else, but that was what I seen being bounced around last night. I think it was on Muppeters. They were saying it's not just a minor niggle, it's a more significant injury, and if that's the case, then that's annoying. Because of the injuries, a couple of injuries, and because of the game that we played on Sunday, I do expect there to be a few changes tonight. I think there will be a bit more of a rotation, and I don't think that's ever going to stop this season. Really, I'd be surprised. I think he's only been here 6 weeks, and I think he's still in that process of trying people out. He's probably got his core 6 or 7 who he's happy to rely on, but I think the other 4 or 5 are still really open for debate, and I think he'll using a game like the League Cup game against Tottenham tonight would be a sensible time to rotate aside, where the result and league position isn't the ultimate factor. I think if we win our next league game and results go our way, we could be 6, which is ridiculous. But I'm not writing off top 4, and Amorim clearly isn't either. So I think if we're going to put all your eggs in one basket, I would be more inclined to think they'd sacrifice a League Cup game than a league game, which is why I think we may see quite a bit of rotation tonight. So that leads us to my predicted team for tonight. Now, you're going to hear this, you're going to watch this, and you think, Ain't feeling that. And to be honest, it's not the side I think he should pick, but I think it is the side that he probably is going to pick. But we'll see. I haven't been right once in the games that Amorim's been our manager. The closest I've got to actually picking the side that he did was at the derby on Sunday when I got 9 out of 11. I'm not expecting to get 9 out of 11 tonight, but let's give it a whirl. Let's run through it and see who I think, and then let's see just how many I get wrong. So I think in goal, I think he's always going to start with Onana. Onana didn't have a bad game on Sunday. He didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything particularly exciting. He kept it really, really simple. Whether he decided that I really need to have a decent game to calm things down a little bit, or his managers told him stop pissing about and just keep it simple, I'm not quite sure. I'm inclined to think it's probably the second. I don't get the impression that Onana is a great one for reflecting on previous performances. I'm not so sure that the manager goes along with that. So I would expect Onana to play tonight, but I would expect him to keep a similarly simple approach to the game. The back three is probably where there's going to be a bit of a change. I don't see Martinez playing. I don't see Maguire playing. I'm saying I don't see them playing. I don't see them starting. They both started on Sunday, both played all game. And given that Maguire's still, I think that was Maguire's first 90 minutes, and Martinez has had a difficult start to the season with injuries and a dip in form. I wouldn't say a loss of form, but there's definitely been a dip from where he would normally be. So I'm expecting those two to be given a bit of a rest, be on the bench at most, and maybe come on for the last half hour, 20 minutes, depending on the condition of the game. Consequently, I think that's going to mean that Johnny Evans may well get another run out at left-sided centre-back. He didn't exactly cover himself in glory against Ipswich, but I don't think that's any reason not to pick him in a game like this. He was flagged up by Amorim last week in one of the press conferences about training well but not getting any game time. So I wouldn't be remotely surprised if he give him some game time tonight. Central centre back, I think he's still going to start with De Ligt. De Ligt played right-sided centre half on Sunday to make space for Maguire. I think they'll probably go back to De Ligt at centre back today, just because I think De Ligt he's certainly match fit. He's not played himself into form, but he's played consistently 90 minutes, 70 minutes. He's getting a lot of game time. I think fitness-wise, you can probably rely on him. And I think he's been playing really well over the last couple of weeks. I think he's looked very assured. He was very front foot on Sunday. He was right up on the back of any City forward and played really well. I don't see him not starting, but I do think he'll change with Maguire after, maybe half-time after an hour. Lenny Yoro, I think, will start at right centre-half. He come on for the last, 10-15 minutes in the derby, and I think he needs to start a game. They've been taking the time with him, they've been easing him back gradually. I think a game against Tottenham would actually really suit him. I don't think he's going to play the whole game, but I do think that starting him in the game rather than bringing him on for the last 10 minutes is probably what he needs now to bring his own sort of match sharpness, not necessarily match fitness, up another step. Now, midfield, the midfield four is where I think everybody's going to disagree with what I pick. The midfield two, I'm going Casemiro and Eriksen. I think he'll give Ugarte the night off. And I think he played Mainu on Sunday far more than he anticipated. I think he probably started that game hoping to bring Mainu on for the last half an hour, 35 minutes or so, but because of the injury to Mount, he had to bring him on he ended up playing 75 minutes. I don't see him starting tonight because of that. And as I say, I think Ugarte's played quite a lot of football over the last couple of weeks, and maybe just sort of at least an hour off, if nothing else, would be a good idea. And it keeps playing Casemiro, keeps him, the miles ticking over, keeps him sort of match fit and that sort of stuff. Left and right wing backs. Let's see how many of you agree with this one. Right wing back, I've gone for Anthony. He is far from my favourite player, and far from many people's favourite player. We paid far too much for him, and he's not good enough for what we should have paid for him. I think the going rate for him when in the earlier last summer was, I think it's 25. I think we got quoted. We ended up paying 80. That's not his fault. It doesn't show an awful lot of common sense from the people that run the club at the time, but the fee isn't Anthony's fault. And I think when he's come on over the last couple of games, yes, it's only been for sort of 20, 30 minutes or so, but I think he's actually done a decent enough job. He is direct, he is pretty fast, he is quite good with the ball. I don't see a future for him at United past this season, but I think giving him a run out tonight would not be the worst idea in the world, because if he's going to be coming on for the last 20, 30 minutes here and there to give us just a bit of added pace or what have you, a bit of increased work rate when people are starting to tire, I think what have we got to lose by starting him? So I'd give him a run out for me. And at left wing back, I would give Malacia a run out. I don't see them playing. They could play Dalot, but again, I think Dalot's played a lot, and I think maybe giving him a bit of a rest tonight. Dalot's not having a good season anyway. He's not playing very well. He seems to be struggling to adapt to the changing system. So I think maybe not starting him. And they do seem to like playing Malacia in midweek games as well. So again, as part of his return to fitness and match fitness, I think I wouldn't be remotely surprised in the starting Malacia at all. The 2-10s, I'm going for pretty much the same as we had on Sunday, or how we ended Sunday with Bruno and Ahmad. Bruno, I think, he, as I said last week, I think he benefits from playing further forward. I don't think being one of the 2 8s or the 8 and the 6 is his game. He can do it, but I think we miss more of his attacking ability when he plays in that position. And I think the forwards and just our attacking threat is a bit more potent when Bruno plays a little bit closer to their goal than ours. And Ahmad, I think because of Mount's injury, I think he probably will end up starting. I don't see him starting Garnacho in that position after last week. I think he hopefully has more work to do to get back in the manager's good graces. I don't think it would be a very good move to drop him for a game and then bring him straight back in for the next one, regardless of how well he's done in training. I don't think you can reward people that quickly. I think that's been half the problem over the last couple of years anyway. So I would have Bruno and Ahmad as our 2. And up front, I would think they're going to start with Xerxes. I think similarly, they seem like Malacia, they seem to like playing him in midweek games. Højlund did a lot of work on Sunday. Might not got the rewards for it, but he did a lot of work on Sunday. He had a lot to do in keeping City's defence occupied. And I think starting tonight, when the Xerxes only played 10-15 minutes on Sunday, I think makes sense. No need to flog Højlund into the ground when we have got somebody there who needs the games. He needs time to work with his teammates in that formation, because he's either not very used to it or he's really taking his time to get his head around what's being asked of him. So I think, for me, I'm going with a lineup of Onana, Euro, De Ligt, Evans, Anthony, Casemiro, Eriksen, Malacia, Bruno, Ahmad, and Xerxes up front. If you don't agree with that, which I'm sure some of you don't, please let me know in the comments. By all means, stick your lineup in there as well. It'd be interesting to see just how varied people's predictions can be. As I say, I've not been particularly accurate predicting the side since Amorim come in. I was just wondering whether anybody else is. So with all that going on, with the significant amount of changes that we've made, what do I think the result's going to be? I think Tottenham coming on the back of a relatively straightforward victory against Southampton. If you want something to boost your confidence after playing shit like they did against Rangers, Southampton is probably the team you want to be playing. And being 5-0 up at half time doesn't get much easier than that in the Premier League. So they're going to be pretty confident. I suppose it depends how they approach it from a team selection point of view. The lineup that I've picked, I don't think it's particularly weak. I think we're still in a period where our strongest 11 is still very fluid. I think we have a stronger 16 or so, and he seems to be picking the 11 from those. So, believe it or not, I'm going for a 2-1 win to United. Again, I don't think we will keep a clean sheet. It just doesn't seem to be our thing at the moment. But I think we're more than capable of causing teams problems. We don't get walked over. I said it, I've been saying it for the last couple of weeks, but we don't. We don't get walked over at the moment. Teams might beat us, but I don't think they do that by sort of steamrolling us all over the place. We are a hard team to play against now. We are a lot better defensively than we were just a couple of months ago, and I think we do have a bit of threat. And I think as the team and the players get used to the system and start to pick up on how each other play in those sort of systems, I think that will be sort of to our advantage. So I'm going with 2-1. We'll see how it goes. I will be back on Saturday, I think, for a preview. I might even do a reaction video later. Depends how tired I am after the game. But we'll leave it there. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.